This is Entrepreneurs Get Visible, the podcast for people who want more impact, influence, and income. I'm Anna Parker-Naples, and I'll be sharing with you proven methods from leading entrepreneurs that help you get visible as an authority in your field. Because anything's possible when you get visible. In today's episode of Entrepreneurs Get Visible, I want to talk through how you can face your competitors, how you can deal with the anger that you might feel, the resentment you might feel, any of those feelings that come up, that bubble away when you are feeling as though you are constantly up against somebody else. But before we dive into that, there's two things I want to let you know about. The first is that we are approaching my 100th episode, and I am giving away 10 opportunities to get your voice, your name, your message, your business out in front of my audience. You would be reaching tens of thousands of people and sharing that message so you can have a wider impact. And one lucky winner is going to become a guest on my show, fully featured, sharing your whole story, given all the guest VIP treatment. So if you know that you'd like to do that and get yourself in the ring to see how you can apply, then you need to go to annaparkernaples.co.uk/get-featured. The link will be in the show notes, so don't worry about writing that down. The other thing I want to let you know about is that I am doing again my podcast 5-day challenge, except this time it is better than ever. I'm calling it the Launch Your Podcast 5-day challenge, and that's because I'm not interested in just helping you start a podcast. I want you to create one that's going to give you a powerful launch. As you've probably seen if you follow me on social media, almost every single client who has launched from the podcast membership has become a top-ranking show, hitting the top 10 either here or in the US. And that's powerful stuff. And that's because I've taught them the foundations that they need to have. So if you've been thinking about having a podcast of your own, and surely if you've listened to this show, you know the power of them, then make sure you head over to register for the free 5-day challenge. We get started on the 25th of May. The link is going to be in the show notes, but if you want to write it down for yourself right now, it's bit.ly/launch your podcast challenge. And I cannot wait to get that one going again. So today I want to talk about how do you deal with competitors. First of all, I think you've got to go back to understanding that if you have competitors, and maybe there are one or two who kind of feel as though they're quite close to what you do, they're in the same worlds, they play in the same online spaces as you. First of all, the fact that you have those competitors shows that your work is needed, shows that what you're offering is actually something that could be lucrative. So first of all, be grateful that you've got competitors, because if you're the only one, then maybe your service isn't needed. And I think also having competitors makes you step up your game. It makes you compare and contrast what your offer is. How are you doing that? But if you start to notice that someone is perhaps dangerously close to some of the copy that you use, or their offer is a very similar price point, or their offer is something that you just think it's just too similar, question what's going on for you there. Lots of my clients come to me and they'll say, this person's doing this and it's really getting to me. I feel like they're copying me. Now, from a legal point of view, you have to be really clear here. Are they actually copying you? Are they imitating you? And it might be from a legal standpoint that actually they've broken a few rules. And that's not really what this podcast is about, although I will bring on a guest to talk about that in further detail later on. What I'm talking about, though, is when there's something about what they're doing that's irritating you. And I think there's a really interesting thing you can do for yourself. Because when we find ourselves becoming irritated, angered, or annoyed by somebody else's actions online, and they are a competitor or a potential competitor, I think there's always a lesson for us to learn. So when you notice that someone's making you riled or angry or irritated, ask yourself what sits behind that. And very often it will be something to do with the fact that you are not doing the work that you know you want to be doing, or that you are not putting the effort in, or you're not charging enough, or that you are not playing a big enough game. That actually sometimes you need to recognise if you're feeling threatened by a competitor, that actually you want to find a different playground. And that doesn't mean that you're running away. That means that you recognise that there's something about their behaviours that doesn't fit with you. And I want you to know that you are perfectly able, if you have a competitor, to block them on your social media so you're not constantly being irritated by them in Facebook groups that you're both in, so that you're not feeling triggered by their behaviours online. Feel absolutely empowered that that is a decision you can make. I've also had clients who've reached out to me to say that a competitor has been in touch with them to make a complaint about something they're doing. And how do you handle that? Well, what I would say is that you've got to go back to your integrity, and you've got to think how you choose to show up has to fit right with you. And on the whole, I'm a big believer that I would prefer to have peers rather than competition. And however, that changes for me when I feel someone is actually trying to control or manipulate me in some way, in which case it makes me check in and think, actually, I want to play a bigger game. How do I step away from this? And the example that I want to share with you is when I was in the voiceover industry, when I was working in that field, I was told by many more established people that I was getting too big for my boots and that I ought to remember that I was a young whippersnapper. Now, not to mention the fact that at the time I was in my 30s, so I really wasn't as young as they all thought I was. But there was something about my online activities and the fact that I was claiming a space and starting to dominate a space that many people who'd been more established than me felt quite threatened by, because I was taking the work in a new direction. And it actually ended up, as I've talked about a few times on this, it ended up becoming almost a stalking affair. I got trolled quite heavily, I got bullied online, and then it came offline. And that was quite scary. But one of the things that I'm quite grateful for was that the anger and irritation and upset that circumstance caused, because competitors of mine were putting me down, actually caused me to think, well, what do I really want here? What kind of business am I growing? And these people who are critical of me or are trying to what felt like suffocate my growth, actually, who are they? Are these the people I want to be amongst? Are these the people I want to lead? Or are there more? Is there more fish to fry? Is there a bigger ocean that I want to swim in? And tapping into the anger and the energy and the irritation and the sadness that came as a result of me being criticised quite openly meant that I tapped back into that and realised that actually I'm in a small pond here. This isn't enough for me. So if you feel that you are irritated or annoyed by a competitor, look back at yourself. It's not about them, it's about you and it's about yourself. And I see this time and again, not just with competitors, but with friends of mine as well, feeling there's just one or two individuals who are so close to what you're doing. But you know what? They will never be you. There are reasons why people are drawn to work with you. That's why we call it attraction marketing. And yes, there might be many people who would work with your competitor, but what they get from you is you, and what you bring to the table is unique. And you might be a year or two behind somebody else or 5 years behind them, but that's okay, because the right people are going to be drawn to you if you continue to stay true to yourself. So I hope that helps, really. I think we don't really talk publicly online about how you deal with competition. And I think the reason that those conversations don't happen is because nobody wants their competition to see that they are being played by them in some way. So I want you to know, if you have someone that every time you see what they're doing, you just think, oh my goodness, she's treading on my toes, or that's what he's doing is so close to what I want to be doing. It's not about them. It's about you. What is it you need to do to step up and play a different game? Don't get involved in the petty squabbles. Do not do that. It is not worth it. Walk away, head held high, and go swim in the ocean. And when you've realised that you've got an ocean that is across the whole world, you need to make sure that you get your message out there. So I hope you will join in with the Launch Your Podcast Challenge. The link is in the show notes. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Entrepreneurs Get Visible. To get your free checklist on how to raise your profile and to find out about our community, go to annaparkernaples.co.uk/get visible.